Basic economics. 3 applications of supply, demand, and elasticity. Can good news for farming be bad news for farmers?
So, let's talk about what happens when a new wheat hybrid is discovered. It sounds good for farming, right?
Absolutely. But interestingly, it can actually be bad news for farmers.
Really? How does that work?
Well, when the new hybrid is introduced, it shifts the supply curve to the right because farmers can produce more wheat per acre.
Got it. So, more supply means more wheat sold, right?
Exactly. But here's the catch, even though the quantity sold increases, the price of wheat falls.
Oh, I see. So, the total revenue for farmers could actually decrease?
Yes. When the price drops and the demand for wheat is inelastic, total revenue can fall. For example, revenue dropped from $300 to $220 after the hybrid was introduced.
That's surprising. Why would farmers still want to adopt the hybrid if it hurts their revenue?
Good question. Each farmer is a small player in the market, so they adapt to the new technology to produce more, even if it affects the overall price.
That makes sense. It's fascinating how technology changes the economy. How has this affected the number of farmers over time?
Well, back in 1950, there were 10 million farmers in the US, which was 17% of the labor force. By 1998, that number dropped to under 3 million, just 2% of the labor force.
Wow, that's a huge change. So, despite fewer farmers, the output has increased?
Exactly. U.S. farms produced more than twice the output of crops and livestock in 1998 compared to 1950, despite the drop in farmers. Why did OPEC fail to keep the price of oil high? So, have you ever wondered why OPEC struggled to keep oil prices high?
Yes. I know they tried to raise prices in the 1970s by reducing oil supply.
Exactly. From 1973 to 1974, they managed to raise oil prices by over 50% by doing just that.
But it sounds like they couldn't maintain that high price for long.
Right. By the mid-1980s, prices dropped significantly, and cooperation among OPEC members broke down completely.
What caused that drop in prices?
Well, it has to do with how supply and demand work differently over time. In the short run, both are relatively inelastic.
So, people still buy oil even if prices go up, right?
Exactly. People with older cars often just pay the higher prices. But in the long run, things change.
How do they change?
Producers outside OPEC start exploring for more oil, and consumers begin to conserve more, like buying efficient cars.
So, OPEC's strategy only worked for a short time?
That's right. Their coordinated supply reduction led to higher prices initially, but in the long run, it became less effective. Does drug interdiction increase or decrease drug-related crime? So, let's talk about drug interdiction and its impact on drug-related crime.
Sure. I've heard that the government spends billions to reduce drug supply, but does it really work?
Great question. When the government increases agents to combat drugs, it shifts the supply curve to the left, raising prices.
Right, so if the price goes up, does that mean people will buy less?
Exactly. The equilibrium quantity falls, indicating reduced drug use. But there's more to it.
What happens to drug-related crime then?
That's where it gets tricky. Higher prices can lead to increased total revenue for drug sellers, prompting more crime.
So, drug interdiction might actually increase crime in some cases?
Yes, especially if addicts need more money to support their habits. It creates a cycle of crime.
What about drug education? Does that help?
Definitely. Drug education can shift the demand curve left, reducing both use and crime.
Interesting. So, interdiction might work short-term, but education is better long-term?
Exactly. Demand can become more elastic over time, helping prevent new users.